Welcome to another video. In this episode, I'm going to prove to you that you can do a pretty good panorama handheld. So let's get started. The first thing you have to do when you're in Photoshop is to go to Automate, Photo Merge, and hopefully you've already gone into Bridge or some other way and picked out the files that you want to use for your panorama, meaning the numbers. So on this one, I'm going to start with 856, and it's going to go to 865. So you want to hold down your Control button on a PC, pick them, say OK. Some people like to do the vignette and also the content aware. Normally, I leave them unchecked. I've done them a few times with each of those, and I usually then end up go back and do it without them being checked. So let's get started. It's going to take a minute or two for it to go through its process. In the meantime, I want to give you a couple of tips on how I did this without a tripod. First of all, as you can see, you want to do them vertically in portrait mode. You don't want to do them horizontally. And the reason why is because it's going to clip some off the top and the bottom. So you want a little extra space on both sides. Also, you want to add maybe one more shot on each side so that, again, when it clips some of it, you can still get pretty much everything that you wanted. Now what's important is, obviously you want a good stance. The other thing you want to do is you don't want to move your camera. And of course your camera has to move. But what I mean by that is you want to have the camera, have your elbow tucked into your chest a little bit. And you want to rotate your hips. You don't want to then move the camera. You want to have it similar to the way it would be on your tripod, where the tripod is rotating and not the camera itself. I know it's probably easier if I had a visual to explain, but I'm sure you can figure that out. You want to stand there, start at one side, keep the camera firm in your hand, and rotate your hips rather than chink, 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 moving the camera all around. I find you get a lot more, the stitching works much better if you rotate your hips as opposed to moving the camera. As you can see, it came out pretty well. It took off a little bit of the top and the bottom. If you had the content fill, it would have filled in a lot of the sky. You can do that manually if you want. I wasn't planning on having too much of the sky anyway. So for me, this is enough to work with. Yeah, I'd kind of like to have the tip of that flag there. So I may fill in a little bit. For the most part, we're okay. So then after it comes up, you want to flatten it. And then usually again, I'd probably rather have the tip of that. Let's do that. Let's fill that in a little bit so that we can get the tip of that flag. I think it makes a difference. Sometimes you want to have either a third of the water and 2/3 sky, or vice versa. But again, that's personal preference, whichever way you want. Doesn't have to be that way. I don't like that. See that window right in the middle? I'd rather, and you want to keep the S obviously. Okay. So there's our crop. Then we want to go in and let's clone this in. Now I'm not going to keep it in color. So if you're ready to leave me before you even hit like and subscribe, please don't do that. Please like and subscribe. Help me, I need help. Like and subscribe. All right. I think it looks better with the tip of that. Need a little bit smaller brush. Okay, I think it looks better saving the tip of that. And then you can see some birds up in the sky. I don't know whether you want to save those or not. A couple of them just look like dots. So what I'll probably do is use the healing brush rather than the clone stamp. And let's get rid of those. This one here looks like a bird, so we'll probably leave that one. Let's save it. The other thing I don't like is that big red splotch right there. Let's clone that out. Now we want to go to a filter, and we want to go into Adobe Camera Raw. The reason why is because I want to bring out a little bit more drama in that sky. So the way we're going to do that is once we're in Adobe Camera Raw, to go into our masking tool, let's select the sky. Okay, you can see it does a pretty good job. It hits the top of this hotel a little bit and a little bit over here, but that's okay. And this here, you can get rid of those, but I'm going to leave them for now. And what we want to do is darken the exposure a little bit. Again, think in terms of black and white. Don't think in terms of color right now. Let's up the contrast, pump those whites a little bit. For now, we won't do any dodging and burning. We'll leave it as is. So we've darkened the sky a little bit, which is what we wanted. We're going to leave the rest of it alone for now. Now let's convert it to black and white. And if you want these trees to pop a little bit, raise your yellow. See in the shadows there? You don't want to overdo it. We want to bring them out a little bit. And then also your greens. See how you can bring those greens out? The reds usually affect these rooftops, so watch for that. And then you want to darken your sky. Put some drama in it with your blues and your cyans. See how much of a difference that makes? I think that did pretty well. See how it added drama? I prefer black and white over color. I'm more of a black and white kind of guy. Now the other thing we can do is let's hit our highlights, maybe 10%. Let's get a little bit more pop in that cloud. Because we're going to add another step here in a minute, and you're going to see why it's important to have those clouds really pop. Let's lighten this a little bit. Okay, that's good enough. Let's have that water pop a little bit more. Just a bit. You'll see why in a moment. So you have to really work them a little bit until you're happy the where you want. Now I shot this with a Nikon Z7 II and a Nikon 24-120 S lens, the new lens. I really like that lens. I have the 24-200 too, which is a pretty good lens, but the 24-120 is a constant f4, where the other one is a 4.5 to 6.3, I think it is. And I just, even though I shoot these at f8 or f10, I still think the 24-120 is just, it's a hair better. It's not a lot better, but at that f4, I took it just because of inside churches and things like that. I can keep it at f4. And I took a 50mm 1.8 for inside some of the churches as well, which I used a little bit. But I found even at f4, if I push the ISO to 800 with IBIS, I could go down to 1/30th of a second, 1/15th, and I could still get a pretty sharp image inside the churches. All right, that's just a tip in case you go on one of these cruises or go to Europe. Okay, now the other effect that I like to use on my black and whites that a lot of people I mentioned in one or two other videos is I go to adjustments and put a gradient map on it. And I put a platinum on it. And look at the difference. See that? Now I don't do it all the way. Maybe 50%. Somewhere in there. And also the fill at maybe 75%. So it gives it just a bit more. Actually, I like it a little bit more. See how it gives you a little bit of that brown tone? I prefer that. I know some people might not, but I do. It adds even a little bit more drama to the sky. See the sky? And also, it gives it a little bit more of an antique look when you're shooting a town like Lucerne. It gives it more of an authentic kind of feel to it, I think, anyway. All right, so we're pretty well done, but that just proves that you can do this handheld. This was definitely handheld, was without a tripod. It's stitched together pretty well, but remember, I think the key is to rotate those hips. Don't move the camera. Keep the cameras keep your elbow up against your chest as much as possible and rotate your hips instead of moving the camera. And I think they'll stitch together a little bit better. Photoshop's come a long way. They stitch these things together really, really easily now, but still it helps when you have pretty good form in doing it. I almost forgot to mention one last tip before I go here is I know in a lot of other videos they say you move it so that you overlap 1/3. I overlap it a lot more when I'm hand holding, and I think that helps as well. I only move about 30% rather than moving 70-75%. I only move about 30%. And so this particular image here was, I think it was 12 images, where ordinarily a lot of people would do this in about 5 or 6 shots. I did it in about 12, and I think that helps stitch them together quite a bit as well. All right, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.